this is Paul Gale from PaulGaleNetwork.com, and thank you for joining me today for video game news. It is August 12th, 2021, and these are the top stories of the day. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining me yesterday for the Nintendo Indie World Showcase. That was a lot of fun, cool event, nice time live streaming, and it was a really cool presentation. We got a lot of solid looking titles out of it, and I'm really excited to play a lot of them this fall and beyond. So thank you again for watching with me. Okay, moving on to today's gaming news. It's going to be a little bit on the short side, but I want to start off with something that we cannot not talk about, and that is the rumored Grand Theft Auto trilogy port coming to Nintendo Switch. I say rumored, but multiple sources are talking about the same thing happening. And in particular, this information comes from Kotaku that broke the story earlier in the day. They say that Take-Two Interactive and Rockstar, Take-Two Interactive being the parent company of Rockstar, are bringing and have been working on for a while porting over GTA 3, GTA Vice City, and GTA San Andreas to modern platforms, including Nintendo Switch, which is huge. Of all of the consoles over the years from Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, this series has been represented the least on Nintendo's. You know, we've got a couple of entries in the Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, DS era, and that's it. You know, no GTA 5, 4, San Andreas Vice City 3, the original 2, the original 1, you know, these side games like Liberty City Stories and Vice City Stories absent from Nintendo consoles. So to have these three on one cartridge or on one download is a pretty big deal. The rumor also suggests that the games are being ported completely into Unreal Engine and will feature a mixture of modern and classic visuals, trying to retain as close to what the games looked like on PlayStation 2 and Xbox back in the early 2000s, but with some modern bells and whistles. Probably safe to assume 1080p, 60 frames per second. Maybe it won't quite get that high. One might be lower. There might be a performance mode, but that's just speculation. But probably some tightened up visuals. It'll be interesting to see if the full soundtrack from all three titles remains intact, or will a couple of songs get taken out, replaced with some new ones. Just how much work is going to be done, you know? Are we getting a substantial improvement in textures, polygon models, and characters? Are we having some more articulation in fingers and stuff like that? Some extra dexterity, draw distance? You know, they want to keep it looking its classic way, so this is not going to be a full-on remake. You know, this isn't getting the Resident Evil 2 remake, if you will. But could it get more than the visual slight improvements that Skyward Sword got, for instance? I think so. Also, the value. You know, what is this worth? These are three $50 games. It's not going to cost $150. So right away, if it costs $60, I would say that's pretty well worth it, right? $60. Some will say, yeah, but they're older games. But you know, if you bought all three independently online from eBay or something like that for Xbox or PlayStation, you're probably going to pay more than $60, especially with manuals and, you know, cases and stuff. So $60 would be fair. $40 would be a steal, I think. If they could do these three for $40 on one Nintendo Switch cartridge, that'd be excellent. Also, expect these to be on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, likely a modern PC package that you could download of it. But in particular, I'm most excited to play these on Nintendo Switch because visually they're old games that are going to look better regardless, and I don't think there will be that much of a graphical disparity between Nintendo Switch and, you know, PS5, Xbox Series X versions. But I'll also be able to take this game completely on the go. So Switch is easy for me. If this rumor is even true, let me know what you think. Are you excited? I haven't played these three in a while. After each one came out, you know, I played them while they were new, dabbled back a little bit, you know, here and there, once in a while, a year or two later, and it's been quite a while, so it'll be fun to go back in and play them again. All right, talk to me. Let me know what you think. Are you excited for any of these three? Will you pick it up? If you pick it up, if it's real, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, where are you getting it? All right, moving on. The only other thing to talk about today, really, since it is Thursday, is hardware and software sales. We're going to start off with software sales. This is the Famitsu sales for week 32 of 2021 that occupy that August 2nd to August 8th time frame. Chris1964 over at the resetera.com forums put this nicely together from Famitsu. So thank you once again for doing that. Let's check it out and see what we have for this last week. Small numbers overall. I could tell that from the beginning. Quick glance. Number one, Minecraft on Nintendo Switch with 14,912 copies sold, up 7% from its previous week. Number two, The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword on Nintendo Switch with 13,873, only a 25% drop, hanging in there, not bad. Number three, Crayon Shin-Chan for Nintendo Switch, up 12%. Number four, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe with 13,615, also up 11%. Number five, Ring Fit Adventure with 12,282 copies sold, up 5% from the previous week. Number six, Momotaro Dentetsu, up 19% with a total of 10,927 copies sold. Number seven, Monster Hunter Stories 2, Wings of Ruin for Nintendo Switch, 10,135 copies sold, up 6% from the previous week. Seeing a trend here, aren't you? Number 8, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate with 8,978 copies sold, up 5%. Number 9, eBaseball Professional Baseball Spirits 2021 for Nintendo Switch with 8,950 copies sold and up 5%. That's everything up except for Skyward Sword and the number 10 game, Game Builder Garage with 8,925 copies sold, down 9%. The two games that were down were not down by much, so they're hanging in there, even on a relatively low week, which when we look at hardware, you'll see it's not like a breathtaking week. It's not bad, but nothing tremendous. And 8 of those titles actually went up. So Nintendo's games make up the majority of this list. We have a couple of third-party titles in there, but 10-0 Nintendo Switch to anything else. Whether you're a first party or third party, Nintendo Switch games is the domination this week. Hopefully throughout the rest of August, September, we still see some solid software numbers because it has been a little bit quiet on the software and hardware front for a while now, kind of thanks to that Nintendo Switch OLED model being announced. But I fully expect that come October 8th, with Switch OLED, with Metroid Dread, with the Tetris Effect now, that we're going to have a boost up, because when new hardware sells in high quantities, new people are also going to buy some of these evergreens, so we're going to see some bumps in these older software entries. At least that's hoping, right? And finally, moving into hardware, we've got Nintendo Switch with 72,000 this week, coming in at number 1, which is a good improvement of 10,000 from last week's numbers, but down a pretty big, considerable chunk from last year's 173,000. It's down a full 100,000. I should note that year to date, however, Nintendo Switch is still ahead of its 2020 self with 3.4 million. Last year, 3.3 million. So Nintendo Switch is still 110,000 units ahead. But you can see this kind of chunk right here, this 100,000 down this week compared to last week. Well, compared to last year, I should say, for that respective week. That really hit it hard, right? It just kept on getting narrower and narrower of a gap. But this 100,000, really brought it from a 300,000 gap to a 200,000 gap. Now from 200 to 100, or I should say, it was 300, getting its way down to 2. This made it 1 just in a week. But still, overall, 20.7 million, fantastic. By the end of this year or early next year, Nintendo Switch will pass 3DS in Japan, and that's pretty impressive. Nintendo Switch up this week, PS5 down 13,530 versus last week's 22,000. 640, that's not that good. 9,000 drop kind of stings. PS4, 1435 to last week's 1209. Xbox Series brand of consoles, 1,069 compared to last week's 1,802. That's also a pretty decent drop, but that's okay because on the Xbox side of things, if you're selling north of 1,000 every week and are having a couple of weeks where you're at 3,000 to 4,000 and just dropping right back down to 1,000, that's actually good for the Xbox. PlayStation should be in like the 50,000, 70,000, should be neck and neck with Nintendo Switch, PS5 that is, not PS4 anymore. But so PS5, that's really doing a lot less than it should. You can see that Sony's still giving a lot more stock to Europe and North America. But Xbox, that 1,000's not bad because already life to date, Xbox Series S and X are at 70,000. It's catching close. It's catching up to the Xbox One numbers. That thing was out for 8 years, you know. Finally, at the last place is 3DS at number 5 with 323 units sold compared to 358 from the last week. But, you know, Nintendo's not making any new 3DS machines. This is just leftover inventory, people selling them. And it's kind of cool that it's still, you know, being sold. There are still enough out there that are being gobbled up by consumers. So that's kind of nice. All right. And that's going to do it this week for Video Game News. Like I said, short. We got that GTA rumor, which is really cool. Hopefully it comes true. Since Kotaku talked about it, since other sources are coming in and saying a similar thing, probably that's a likely game to drop this November or so. And I think it's going to sell really well. And it makes me wonder, gosh, could Take-Two, could Rockstar be so pleased with just how well it did, particularly on Nintendo Switch, that they're like, okay, next year we're going to drop GTA 4. Or in 6 months, GTA 4, and then 6 months later, GTA 5. They probably don't want to have too much available on Nintendo Switch all at once because, you know, that's going to fracture their own market. But if they release them, if they stagger them, that would be really wise, and you could just have GTA 4 and GTA 5 see a second breath of air. Especially 5, since it's really hot on people's minds. And with the PS5 and Xbox Series X versions coming out soon with their own quality of life improvements, maybe the Nintendo Switch version would benefit from some of those. Not the 4K, not the 60 frames per second and the ray tracing, but maybe some of the others potentially. We'll see. Just speculation for now, but can't help but get excited. Let me know what you thought of today's software and hardware numbers. Are you still Team 2021? Or are you like, uh-oh, might be Team 2020? I think that Team 2021 for Nintendo Switch overtaking its 2020 self is still likely. That gap is starting to narrow. There might even become a point over the next couple of weeks where 2020 is ahead of 2021. However, if it could be ahead by just a couple 100,000, nothing substantial like 500,000 plus, come October 8th, I think Nintendo's last 2.5 months, from October 8th through December 31st, looks more attractive than last year's did, with the OLED model, with Metroid Dread, with 2 Pokemon games, Diamond and Pearl remakes, and we've got, you know, Travis Touchdown, which is technically in this quarter, not the third. There might be enough that once that OLED model comes out, we see Switch ramping up again, beating its last year's self, and 2021 Switch come out on top. But we'll see. I still think it's possible, and likely. I'm still Team 2021. All right. Thanks for watching. This is Paul Gale Network signing out. Hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.